Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Multilingual Me. My name is Brandon. I'm a multilingual languages teacher, originally from Canada, so my first language is English, but I've also learned French, Hungarian, German, Spanish, American Sign Language, and a little bit of Russian, Hebrew, and Greek, very little Greek. But I love languages, it's a huge passion of mine, and here in this channel I discuss different experiences that I've had with different languages, different experiences with different cultures, and specifically in this playlist I want to teach people how to learn Hungarian. I learned Hungarian through living in Hungary for 2 years. Before then, I went to a training center for language development and cultural development. And so, yeah, I was there at that training center for about 3 months. And then I went to Hungary and was just thrown into the deep water and learned through talking every day with the people, just through being completely immersed in the language. And Hungarian it's a really difficult language. It's categorized as one of the most difficult for non-native speakers to learn, particularly, for example, for English speakers. It's close to the top of the list, along with like Chinese and Japanese and Arabic and these other ones. And there are some things that make Hungarian a hard language to learn. There are not very many people who learn it. It's not a very popular language. Hungary is somewhat of a smaller country, and because it's a smaller country and the language is so difficult and not necessarily so popular around the world, it's not very common necessarily that people try to learn it. But I know that there are people out there who are interested in learning Hungarian, whether it be because you have Hungarian family and you want to be able to connect with them better. Some of you want to apply for Hungarian citizenship, like for a Hungarian passport through your family. And so as part of that process, you want to be able to speak the language so that you can do the language proficiency portion of that interview process. There are some of you who are dating a Hungarian, who are in a relationship and want to learn Hungarian for your significant other or for their family. And there are some who just are interested in languages. There are some polyglots out there who just, like me, are fascinated by languages in general and who take Hungarian on as a challenge and want to learn it. Lots of different reasons for wanting to learn the language. I learned it originally as a missionary. I went to Hungary for 2 years on a volunteer basis. I was doing volunteer work over there. And that's the context in which I learned the language and fell in love with it. And honestly, it is a difficult language to learn, but I don't think that it is not accessible. I think it can be learned and it can be learned well. There are many Hungarians that I interact with on a daily basis who give me good and encouraging feedback on how well I have been able to learn the language. Many Hungarians that I interact with tell me that it's hard to distinguish me from a native speaker. Some say that I have little to no accent at all, and that, yeah, they have to kind of think twice to recognize that I'm not a native. And so I say that not to boast, I say that to show that it is possible to learn the language and to learn it well. And I would like to be someone who is able to inspire you to learn the language, but also let you know how I did it. Because I think there are some tricks that make Hungarian easier to learn, that make it more accessible as a language. So that is my general goal with this specific playlist on this channel. So first off, I'd like to discuss the alphabet as a learning method and as a learning strategy, because Hungarian is a very phonetic language. This is one thing that actually makes Hungarian easy. It's not like, for example, I speak French fluently. French, if you learn phonetics in French, there is some rhyme and reason to it, But one big critique that complaint that a lot of people have about the French language, for example, is that there's a lot of things that are not pronounced. You can have, for example, 5 letters, like A, I, E, N, T, for example, and that gives you one sound, eh. And so it can be a little bit confusing with some languages that are not quite as phonetic or not quite as friendly in a phonetic sense. Hungarian, on the other hand, is very consistent and very easy this way. And so if you learn the Hungarian alphabet and you learn just a couple tricks about how the letters interact with each other, how they influence each other when they're put together in certain patterns, really, like, there's not that much to learn regarding that. But once you know those few tricks, it makes it super easy to read. And so you can start reading Hungarian right away as soon as you know the alphabet. And that can be a huge help just for allowing you access to the language. You'll still have to learn the words, right? The vocabulary and the grammar. Hungarian is very much a compound word language, and there's a lot of prefixes and suffixes. So that affects a lot of how the words will look, and that will need to be learned. But I'll take you through it step by step. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, as accessible as possible. But even just with the alphabet, you'll be able to read. You may not be able to understand what you're reading at first, but you'll be able to say it out loud. And you'll be able to read out loud, and you'll already be engaging with the language that way. So that's the first step. I'll post another video here shortly explaining the alphabet in Hungarian. And from then on, let's just dive right into it. With regards to learning the alphabet, you can already start to do that from books, for example, or you can type in Hungarian alphabet on Google or something, and you'll see the alphabet there. And that can be helpful. I will go through it in a subsequent video as well, because what I think is really helpful is just having an audio guide. When I started learning Hungarian, I started with the alphabet as well. I personally took the alphabet and some grammar tips from a Hungarian grammar book by Carol Rounds, and I found that helpful. There were some written pronunciation guides, and it was nice because she used French and German as reference languages for some of the sounds, specifically with the vowels in Hungarian. And so that was helpful to me as someone who speaks both French and German. It helped me to kind of orient myself with the sounds in Hungarian. But for those who aren't familiar with French and German, for example, and who just really need to hear the sounds in order to register it and to be able to really know how to place it, it can be really helpful to have an audio guide, someone who just pronounces it and shows you what it sounds like. So I hope to do that for you and make things a little bit more accessible and easier for you to understand and implement and start using as you learn Hungarian. I look forward to working with you, and yeah, stay tuned. For those of you who are interested in diving a little bit deeper, I am a languages teacher, a multilingual languages teacher online, and so you can access my profile in the description. I'll leave my link there, and hope to see you soon. Ciao.